lumens relate to an actual measured value for brightness. And what you'll see a lot is you'll see companies plastering 10,000 lumens and 5,000 lumens or 35,000 lumens on a package saying this is the brightest, best thing ever. Mm-hmm. Typically, they're using a term called theoretical lumens, which is what happens when you first turn on the light, and that has an immediate startup value, but it settles pretty quickly. And so we produce anything on our advertising or packaging has both a theoretical lumen and an actual lumen output. So it really defines and it speaks to the character of the company to say, okay, this is where it starts, but where you're going to see it most of the time when you're operating is going to be at this level. So you don't get this baloney thing going on with just this inflated value.
Warning. The 4x4 Canada podcast contains discussion about exploring mountains, camping beside lakes, and enjoying the outdoors. Guests also talk about jumping race trucks side by side, racing 1,000 horsepower rigs across mud pits, and jumping monster trucks over stacks of buses. None of this is for the faint of heart. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for bringing out your inner adrenaline junkie or making you want to get out there and explore the back roads from coast to coast. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for broken parts due to jumping your vehicle, hitting mud poles too hard, crossing deep streams, and doing other dumb shit. However, we will take credit for inspiring you to explore mountaintops, spend quality time outdoors with your friends, or meeting new like-minded people, and most importantly of all, following your dreams. Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your host, Wes, and today we're missing Trisha. She is off sick. She got a nasty sore throat, so probably not a good thing for her to be talking for a bit, and so we let her relax for a bit. But today we have Ian from Brightsource. They're a Canadian light company, and we'll get into them in a second, but I do want to just remind our listeners to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any episodes. Also, if you're enjoying the show, please let your friends know about it. If you do not enjoy the show or you want to give us some suggestions on how to improve, please let us know about it, and we'll go from there. Ian from Brightsource, welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to chat with you.
I'm looking forward to this. We've been playing tag last little bit, but we have not talked about lights on the podcast yet. So I'm super excited about this. Hopefully our listeners can learn more about Brightsource and also learn about light technology in general. There's so many aftermarket light companies out there, and it can get real confusing on what lights people should buy. I mean, there's light bars, there's curved, there's straight, there's light pods, and amber and clear and DOT and E code and everything else, right? So
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of nice to sit back and let's have a look at this, and hopefully, we can learn a little bit more about lights in general, but also about Brightsource. And actually, before we hop into that too deep, I do want to let our listeners know that Brightsource has kindly offered a discount to the 4x4 Canada podcast family. After listening to the interview, go to the website brightsource.ca and use the promo code of 4x4 Canada at checkout for a 15% discount. There's a lot of really cool lights on there. There's multi-use lights. A lot of your lights are multi-use, and we'll get into that in a second. But, there's the new titanium T4 20-inch light bar. We'll talk about that in a bit, but that thing's absolutely wild. You guys got to go to the website, check out the video. That's probably the easiest way to explain that one, because it's mind-blowing what it all does in just a tiny little 20-inch LED light bar, right? So, but yeah, definitely check out at brightsource.ca, as well as Instagram and Facebook at Brightsource as well, too. So I'm rambling. Ian, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit about Brightsource before we get into all the lights you guys offer.
Yeah, no worries. My business partner, John Hilton, and I have been in the aftermarket world since, too long. I worked with Pia for a long time. John's company, Hilton Overseas, was one of the first to import Pia way back in the late 80s. And that's roughly the time I started working in the aftermarket lighting world. And So I've worked with PIA for a very long time until recently. Yep. But John and I started this company in 2009, and we got into it because at that time, HID headlight bulb upgrades were the thing, and PIA didn't want to go there because of certain legality issues, especially in the United States. So John and I saw an opportunity to provide better lighting options for Canadian vehicles. And one of the things that is really dominant there is the daytime running lights issue. And so our American friends don't really have every single vehicle out there with daytime running lights. But in Canada, it is a mandatory thing for vehicles past, I think it's 1986 or 89, something like that.
Yep.
And so there's different mechanisms electrically that made it more difficult to get reliable output. And so we invented a bunch of stuff. We manufacture some of our products here in BC, but straight up, majority of our products, just kind of like everything else in this world, it seems, are manufactured either in Taiwan or in China. So and we worked with these factories for 14, going on 15 years. So we've got good relationships with solid manufacturers, and that's very, very important. And we're also a company that has service. So if you have an issue and you want to talk to somebody, we have a customer service rep here, and we have great warranties. We've got a really good track record, and we're not happy unless you're happy. So that's the foundation on just, treat people like you would like to be treated, and, produce a good product and fair price and all that stuff. And that's kind of the basic values of our business. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've heard a lot of good things about Brightsource, and that's one thing that always comes back to any companies that we work with is customer service, right? And I've been in customer service in the aftermarket parts industry for years, and I've still got friends that I dealt with 30 years ago, right? That started off as customers and become friends. And so you've been around for definitely years. Lighting technology has evolved, and it's changed so much. I mean, even over the last 5-10 years. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, but you go back to the days of the KC daylighters and back in the 70s and 80s, and what is available now is just mind blowing compared to what was available in the 80s, 90s, or even the early 2000s. It's just, you talk about HIDs came on board and you got the LEDs out now. It's so, and it's constantly changing all the time, as we'll get into with some of your guys' products. But I was wondering if you could maybe just help us a little bit with the terminology. Back in the old days when I was involved in things more, we talked about candle power, and that was how they measured how bright a light was. Right. That has gone by the wayside, and now we talk about lumens. Sure. Is that's sort of the standard measurement of the light these days?
Yeah, I sort of break it down into three basic categories. One is the lumen output. Lumens relate to an actual measured value for brightness. And what you'll see a lot is you'll see companies plastering 10,000 lumens and 5,000 lumens or 35,000 lumens on a package, saying this is the brightest, best thing ever. Mm-hmm. Typically, they're using a term called theoretical lumens, which is what happens when you first turn on the light, and that has an immediate startup value, but it settles pretty quickly. And so we produce anything on our advertising or packaging has both a theoretical lumen and an actual lumen output. So it really defines, and it speaks to the character of the company to say, okay, this is where it starts, but where you're going to see it most of the time when you're operating is going to be at this level. So you don't get this baloney thing going on with just this inflated value. Second thing relates to focus. So you can have a really bright light, but how that LED is focused in a housing is super important, because whether you want it to be a flood pattern or a fog light or a driving light, like a long range driving light, that is also a major consideration. And so I'm getting into it a little further, but there's also a color mechanism. Color is measured in degrees Kelvin, and Kelvin is a color scale. And so you'll see current halogen bulbs will run around 3,800 Kelvin. Like that's sort of the peak on a street legal basis.
Right.
But the LED and the HID products are typically in the 6,000 Kelvin range. When you go above 6,000, the light loses its crispness and tends to edge into the violet spectrum on the lighting scale. So you'll get something that looks a lot bluer, a lot more purplish. And that is cool looking, but it's not as effective as kind of that sweet spot. So you'll see a lot of lights out there are in the area between 5,500 and 6,250 or even 6,500. But most of our lights are in the 6,000 K area because that's a very popular, that's where our eyes seem to react best to the light output. So
that's the sweet spot, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think the direction or the clarity of the light is a huge thing as well too, right? I mean, you get some cheaper light bars out there that say you've got huge amount of lumens or whatever, but they're just throwing the light out there and it doesn't do anything. I've had that experience myself with the different vehicles over the years, especially in the early days of light bars and that, and it just throws it out there. But now we're seeing the technology where that light is more of a directional light. You can actually sometimes even see the line almost kind of idea. And
definition. Yeah. And there are projector lights that have a really razor sharp cutoff pattern. And HID bulbs are still a good option for those because they do produce a lot of light. But by far and away, the entire market is definitely moving into the LED spectrum. And, to your point, I mean, there's about 3 different developments every year. So there's kind of like 3 seasons where an improvement and improvement and improvement, and you're just kind of going, hang on a second here. No, it is moving ahead, and I like that progressiveness. And one of the things that we try to do, or the direction that we're taking our product offerings, is to use more than one function in a light, because you've got on today's vehicles, they're all very nicely styled. There's not, very few of them have big old bumpers on them. You can buy aftermarket bumpers, but it's a challenge putting lights on vehicles because the vehicles aren't being designed for light bars. They're being designed to look good. So it's finding a way to establish a cool looking light bar or light output product that maybe does 1 or 2 or 3 things instead of just being, focused on being a fog light or a driving light or what have you. So there's that's a direction that we started a few years ago, and more companies are moving in that direction as well. So,
Well, let's hop right into that. I saw a video the other day and really interested in this new 20-inch titanium T4 series quad function, dual beam, dual row light bar. Like, I'll let you get into it because you obviously know it a lot better than me, but all I can say is on my side of it is go to the brightsource.ca website, and it's right on the front page on the website, and check out the video, or go to Brightsource's YouTube channel, and they've got a YouTube video of this light bar. And what it does is just absolutely amazing. It is 4 functions, and I'll get into that in a second, but it's really impressive. You got to sort of see the video to get the true feeling of how different this light is than any other light bar out in the market.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things we didn't talk about yet is like the SAE, DOT, and the E code, and then the off-road stuff. So let me just touch upon that really quickly.
Definitely. Yeah.
So nobody likes to be driving down the highway and have somebody coming the other direction and flipping huge light, and you're blinded and you can't see. So, that's my pet peeve. And, it can be as simple as just readjusting your light bar to not project into somebody's face. But as far as things go in BC, but right across Canada, there is a term called SAE DOT, which basically stands for a street legal application. So as long as those lights are mounted at or below headlight level and then triggered by a switch that connects to your high beam, that's a street legal application, as long as it's got that SAE DOT mark on the lens. So you can have an SAE DOT approved fog light or a strobe light or a driving light. So there's other work lights and so forth that are more specific use wise. But for our purposes here and for the 4x4 market, that's what most generally applies. So the SAE DOT scales were established quite a long time ago. There are updates, but if you're a 4x4 guy and you like to drive fast on dirt roads, you don't really want a street legal light where you just want to see Bambi on the side of the trail.
Exactly.
An unhappy meeting. So the off-road light market, and we have lots of lights that fit into this category too, is more for off-road use only. And so you have that category where it's for use on highway. You still have to dim in traffic, or you should dim. Okay, you can get ticketed for driving with your high beams in traffic. And there's also, just sort of in the same breath, there's another standard in Canada. It's called the E code, or the E mark certified aspect. So without getting into too much detail, an E mark certified product is street legal in BC, and then it hops over the prairies and goes into Eastern Canada and the Northern Territories. Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba don't recognize an E mark as street legal. So, and the reason that we've adopted in our market E mark driving lights is because an SAE DOT approved driving light is typically pretty dull, and it's dull by definition. So there's a maximum lumen output you can have. There's a recommended range of light output that it is allowed. Mm-hmm. And so if it exceeds those limits, it's not correct. So we do SAE and DOT. We have products for both categories. The other thing I wanted to just mention in the range of this, just measurements, you can see a lot of times, well, how far is that light going to project, right? So like a really good fog light might only be, a couple hundred feet or 70 or 80 meters, but it's very broad, very bright, and it's a belt of light across the road. So you can see what's happening right in front of you. And typically, if you're driving in heavy fog or snow, that, and especially in a yellow color, gives you some definition. So you might see the side of the road better, or an object that you want to avoid better. And so on the other side of the fence, when you want to see a long way, we measure the lux. It's called the lux, and it's like we usually use 1 lux at X meters. So a really nice long-range driving light might have 600 meters. We have a product that has 1.4 kilometers. So, that's definitely not neither of those two lights would be on-road street legal. They're aftermarket off-road stuff. So there's quite a range. But, getting back to the T4 and our 4-function light bar, we have, and just speaking to the driving light for a second, it has an E mark certification, and it's got a range of 1 lux at 420 meters. So that is quite a ways. And when you're driving anywhere, it's hard to outdrive that speed-wise.
So when you say that, is it at, say, 420 meters, is that where, say, you'll see the eyes of an animal, or you'll see like a reflective sign kind of idea? Right. Okay.
Yeah. It'll light something up that will reflect. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So this light bar, the T4, which we're just coming back to that, and after all that blather about technical terms.
Well, no, that's something was on my questions as well, too, was talking about the SAE and the E code and stuff. So I actually skipped to talk about the light bar. So that worked out good going back to it. For sure.
Yeah. So we when we were looking at designing something special and something really unique in the market, we wanted to cover off, first of all, a great driving light, a street legal fog light. A lot of our products go into fleets and safety vehicles. So having an SAE DOT strobe light was a good idea. And then incorporating a marker light. And so the SAE DOT fog light we have satisfies the legal requirements to be SAE certified, and as I mentioned, often that is kind of dull. So it meets the requirements, but there is a boost function. And the boost function means that you can make it a brighter yellow light. So it's not exactly cheating, but it is if you're driving on the highway with this, you're using the SAE-DOT approved beam, you're fine.
Right.
Probably nobody's ever going to pull you over because the focus is really super sharp. So if it's aimed properly, you're probably never going to have an issue with that boost function. And then our driving light, as I already mentioned, is an EMARC certified piece that has 420 meters of range. There's a strobe light. There's different codes for strobe lights, but we wanted to make sure that these were class 1, so they could be used on highway, and they have a double flash, and so they meet that. And they're on the sides of the light bar. And then running down the middle of the light bar is a marker light, and it's also meets SAE-DOT standards for brightness. And you can choose what color you would like there. So we have either a white or an amber. And we sell with the light a 4-position switch that allows you quite easily to wire this up. So there's a 6-pin connector that goes to a harness that mounts with a switch that mounts on your dash, and you press a power button in the middle that lights up the switch unit, and you can choose between the functions to whatever you want to use. Sometimes people look at combination products and say, well, okay, well, where's the compromise?
I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
Have they wussed out in performance on any level here? And so that was far and away something we wanted to avoid. We wanted to make sure we had the proper technology to be excellent in all of these areas and to meet those standards for whether you're an off-road person or a commercial fleet supervisor. It's going to meet your needs. So that's what we come up with. The harness, remember I mentioned that if you're going to have, high beam driving light, it's got to be connected to your high beam switch. So that harness comes with an adapter to tap into your high beams, or you don't have to use that. It's a choice a person makes. So they can say, hey, I want to be able to power that without my high beams on. So when you just use the switch. But to be street legal, it's got to be off the high beam.
You've covered yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to be detailed enough so that without being too boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the story behind the T4, and we just brought it to market this year. It was in the works for a couple of years, and we needed to make sure it was going to be to the standards that it's got a 5-year warranty. It's like a very, very solid, reasonably priced product. So it retails for like $588. Switch is $289, and you can install it separately, but without the switch. But the switch will save you a ton of time.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
Can you do also have some other light bars that are both a fog and a driving light as well, too, right?
Yeah. So we've got cube lights they're either, they're like the 3-inch square cubes. We've got a plethora of those. So there's white SAE-DOT, driving and fog. Then there's yellow SAE-DOT driving and fog. I find that driving light, the street legal driving light and amber output or yellow output is awesome for driving in the rain, which we get a lot of here in the Lower Mainland, because it just picks up, it lights up those white marker lines beautifully. So that's a good thing. And then we have off-road cubes as well that are, we have an RFB, which stands for really freaking bright, and an SFB, which is super freaking bright. And they're a more sleek design. They're more modern looking. And we do have other products that can be used for both purposes, but they're typically more, they're either fog light or driving light. The T4 is the first one with the combined output.
Okay.
And,
And what about the Siberia line? I've been looking at those as well.
Yeah. So Siberia lights are produced by a company called Strands Lighting Group out of Sweden. They are a larger European manufacturer. They share, they probably tell us that we share, but we share a common passion for great lighting. And because they are a northern country, they have the same or more dramatic weather than we might see south here. But as you get further into Canadian North, we're dealing with the same elements. And so durability and longevity are huge, and reliability. Like you don't want your lights going out when you're way the heck out on some dark highway and now you got no auxiliary lights. Because once you put these things on and you use them, it's like, holy smokes. Turn it off. It's like, help me out. So
yeah, you don't want to turn them on when you're staring right at them.
That's true. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, so Strands is a company that we partnered up with a couple of years ago to be their North American distributor. They really pushed the envelope a little bit further than we can as a smaller company by introducing a plethora of new products that incorporated, first of all, that bright driving light function with marker lights with that dual color option. And so there's like a huge range of single row and double row lights ranging anywhere from 8 inches up to 50 inches. So you kind of go 8, 12, 20, 30, 40, 50 inch sizes.
Yeah.
And then they get into the taillight market, which is a big market especially for toy hauler folks and guys with sleds and or ATV or anything in that power sports market. And then they've really pushed the bar in the work light sector by coming out with like utilizing some of the newest technology to make a work light haven in the dark, right? So it's really important to be able to see well when you're working at night with big equipment and so forth. So yeah, we've been working with them for a couple of years. We've been doing really well with that lineup. We've been promoting it. A lot of our dealers here are selling that product, which is great.
Yeah.
It's possible to get it online, of course, and they look different. And that's a lot of times what people want is, there's certain big names out there that grab a big chunk of the market. And then, if you're a Toyota guy or a Jeep gal or, wherever you find yourself in the market, if you're all excited about your new lights and you see them all of a sudden on everybody else's vehicle, sometimes that's not what you're looking for. So we hope to have that problem in the future. But right now we're in this niche of really unique stuff that very few people have, but it's super good quality. And as I mentioned before, making sure that the product will last is exactly my last name is Mackenzie. I'm a Scot. I want value, man. So this is where we find ourselves, and that's where we've made a really good alliance, I think. So
yeah, no, it's definitely a unique looking product, and from the stats I could see on it, it seems like good stats on it. But glad to hear that it is a top quality. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything else from you guys, but because I know you're not going to be partnering with somebody that doesn't do quality stuff. But they're definitely an interesting looking light for sure. Yeah. Have you noticed, like, remember when light bars came out? I don't know, what was that, 10 years ago or something like that? Everybody seemed to be going for the big light bars up on the roof. So you're 60 inches, and then they came out with the curved ones and that as well. Are you finding that those big ones are slowing down, and more as the technology improves for the lights, the big light bars are slowing down and more people are dealing with the smaller ones and keeping them up front? Or are you guys still selling a lot of the big light bars?
Yeah, there's a couple things that complicate issues installation wise with the bigger light bars, and that's you're drilling into your roof. What is today's trend is more about incorporating light bars into a roof rack system. So
what I was thinking.
So much of the overlanding crowd is using rooftop tents, and so brand that does really well with our lights is Prinsu. They have and especially for a Tacoma, I know you're a Toyota guy, but there's racks that fit all kinds of trucks, all sizes. But
Yep.
the Prinsu rack takes our Strands 42-inch single row light bar to a T. It just fits, and so you're mounting it on a light bar. They're mounting the light bar on a roof rack that's on the vehicle. Now you still have to sort out the power sourcing side of things, but you're not drilling your light bar into the roof of your vehicle. And there's other ways to source power for that. So that's a really popular application for us. And we've had a lot of customers buy those 42s for that reason. And we still get the occasional 50, 52-inch or 50-inch curved application request. And we have those in stock. So, we still have them, but sales have really changed, according to what people are using their vehicles for. So we try to keep up.
Yeah, you always got to try and keep up with the demand on things, and things are always changing. But that's kind of what I was noticing, is that you're not seeing those great big 60-inch bars anymore, and people are using, say, a smaller, like a 42 or 40 built into roof racks, or going into some like a 20 or a 30 or 32 into the cavity on a front bumper,
right?
Rather than going with the great big ones. But I think a lot of times, you compare a light bar from 10 years ago, big 60-inch, and you almost get a better light out of a small 30-inch bar these days with the technology changes, right? So 100%. There's not that big need for the great big bars anymore as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the technology, just a real quick one on technology and putting some names to it. It's like the older school light bars are forward-facing LEDs. The current model seems to be more along the lines of something that I was involved with a lot of years ago, and it's reflector facing. And by aiming the LED light output at a broader surface area, you're able to get more control and more focus, which means you don't need quite as much light output. And one of the other reasons was that the efficiency of the LEDs 10 years ago is one of the reasons that the light bar was bigger, because it just required more wattage. And so there still are high wattage lights out there for sure. Let's not go on there. But the advances in engineering have been always towards more efficiency. And through more efficiency, you can take the opportunity to get better focus. And then, as I said before, either if you want it to be a flood pattern versus a long-range driving pattern, you make your choices on that. Yeah.
I noticed you guys still have round lights.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
I was looking at the 7-inch titanium light, and to me, it's quite interesting because it's not very deep. It seems to be quite a shallow light, but because a lot of the lights, think back to, they're quite a deep light, and you had to worry about backspacing into a grill or whatever. But those 7-inch titaniums are quite shallow. So for people looking for that round look, that would definitely be an option for them. Is that, like a 7-inch round light, is that necessarily that much more brighter than, say, like a 3x3 cube?
Yeah, for sure. So the design style of our 7-inch titanium and our 9-inch titaniums have a combination of, by design, placement in multiple, more forward-facing LED positioning. So yeah, typically out of a cube, you'll get a fewer number of LEDs coming to work in a smaller housing.
Right.
So, but there are still some excellent cube lights that they'll throw 166 meters or more. The 7-inch 9 titanium was the first product that we saw on the market to come in with both that driving light as well as the marker light feature. And we've incorporated a dual color to that model now. So you can have either amber or white, and you can power that up wherever you want from your, you could hook the daytime running light circuit into the daytime running light circuit, or you could hook the amber into the flashers. So you can pick and choose how you want to make those lights come to life on your vehicle, and that's a customization feature that people really like. In the Strands lineup, we have a lot of 7 and 9 inch options, and started off with the Siberia, like a Bush Ranger and a Night Ranger, and the Bush Ranger being a yellow lens model, Night Ranger being a clear lens. And then there's 2 new lights that Strands came up with this year and have launched, and they are both in 9 inch sizes right now. Those 7 inch models are coming, and one's called the Skylord and the other is called Firefly. And they're both stunning looking. And if there's any major difference between our titanium and these 2 lights, it's got more to do with depth. And to your point about ease of installation, that's valid. And they're heavier. And so Strands generally designs these 9 inch lights for like transport trucks that are going all over Northern Europe, and they got a longer winter than anywhere else in the world. Right. In the northern climates is what I'm referring to there. And so those are really skookum units. But, we go from, 7 and 9 inch lights down to even rock lights. We were talking about that in preparing for this, where you have a little 2 inch light that you can stick under your bumper or in your wheel well. And that, if you're working at night on a trail and you want to see where your tires are going, the rock light's awesome for that. So there's a huge range. That's one of the things that's so cool about lighting. So there's so many different applications and products available to do it,
Yep. Well, speaking of that rock light, to me, that's a perfect little light to mount up on the rack for when you're setting up for camping. You're pulling into a campsite late at night, and have, a couple of those, and it just helps that little bit of coverage. So, there's lots of options. Lots of guys are using them for under the vehicle, but a lot of guys will be using them as setting up for camp as well. And one thing I've really noticed last couple of years is a lot of us are starting to run a rear facing amber light, right? So we can see each other in the dust a bit better. And that's another option too, is with that rock light, just to give a little bit of so you can see something. But you've also got some other options there, some of your cube lights and that as well too. But
so in that regard, like we've got like a product called the Cube, QUBE, from Strands, that has a marker light that can be either amber or white in the middle. There is a Red Tiger, which is a 12 inch backup light that has an amber or a red marker. So you could, again, choose that. A lot of times people will use the red as another position for your brake light. So that when that comes on, it's flipping bright. And so you see that, really well in dust or snow. And that backup light on that Red Tiger is 275 meter range. So like if you got a lot of light back there, if you want to flip on the white light, there's a Red Fox Cube light with an amber or red marking light that's sometimes used in the front of a vehicle, but it's more often and better positioned. Anything with red on it should be sort of at the back of the vehicle, because it's that way. But we have a lowrider product in a 10 inch or a 30 inch that is a dedicated amber light, and those are typically quite narrow in terms of their.
That would be a nice one for the rear, like that says that rear facing one for in the dust. That would be a really nice one.
Yeah. So, and it's got 3 colors. So you can do, it functions as a warning light, triple position light. So you could have white, red, or amber in either the 10 inch or the 30 inch. And we haven't sold so many of those yet, but I think as more people learn about it, we'll do more business with that.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hop into headlights.
Sure.
And that's kind of where you guys got your start. As you mentioned earlier, you've got LED lights and you got HID headlight kits. And HID headlight kits have been out for a while, but they require a ballast and there's a little more work to installing them. Their light output is huge. But lately LEDs have started coming out and LED headlights coming out.
Right.
Are you starting to see LEDs take over the HIDs, or basically maybe you can explain the differences between the two of them? Maybe we'll start with that.
Sure. So, an HID light is a gas-powered light that requires a major initial slam of voltage to power it up and ignite the gas. And it is a glass tube filled with, xenon gas. And then when electricity hits it, it powers it up, and you'll sometimes see it kind of like flash up and then settle down.
Yep.
Like that's a common thing with HIDs. And that was the starter. It's like HID is high intensity discharge. That's what it stands for. But it does require a ballast. The ballast can be another failure point. And it's more fragile than an LED bulb, because an LED is a printed circuit board with a lot more stability. And so the challenge with the chip is to manage the heat generated by the electrical impulse that goes through that, so that it doesn't fry it within a short period of time. It's just basic layman terms. So, LED bulbs used to have a shorter shelf life. Nowadays, you can get LED chips that'll run 30 to 50,000 hours. That's an awful lot of driving.
Yeah.
And so when we first came out with LED headlight bulbs, it was 9-10 years ago. There was just scattered light. It wasn't super focused at all. And so as the technologies evolved, now we have a series called our ML series, and that stands for maglev. That's basically it's like the technology that's used on those bullet trains where there's magnetic levitation. And so what happens with our bulbs is that they are a fan-based bulb, but that's a requirement for the heat part of the equation that's generated by our chips. So you look at a conventional halogen bulb, which again I mentioned is like 3,800 Kelvin back at the start of our discussion,
right,
to a Brightsource 6,000 or 6,500 Kelvin bulb. You're going to see a big difference color-wise, but they're 5 times brighter than the halogen bulbs. So as we talked about, like 5 times brighter doesn't always mean anything, like especially if it's just being plastered over a broad spectrum. So you want that focus, and you want that, I use the word sweet spot, but you want that blending of technologies that gives you focus light where you need it in abundance. It's not going to blind the crap out of the people who are driving either in front of you or oncoming traffic. And it's just really a big evolution. So we came out with that last year. It's done very well for us. We still have that issue in Canada here with daytime running lights and the variable pulse that you get, especially because vehicles were originally designed to run halogen bulbs. They used a lower frequency pulse to produce a dimmer halogen light output for your daytime running lights.
Right. Yeah.
When you turn on your low beams, you would have an increase in light output from your DRL. And so we have vehicle specific kits that deal with that. So for your Tacoma, we have a pretty simple vehicle specific option for that. In other words, that just incorporates a specialty harness. And the reason we use that is that the light, if you were to put in just the straight bulb, it would work. But what you don't see is this multiple flicker thing that's happening to your LED bulb. So when we talk about 30,000 hours, we're talking about, consistent power over 30,000 hours means that the bulb's going to function for that. Like, that's why we have 3-year warranties on these and so on, because we always peg it towards a heavy use application. Right. The harness that we would use with your Tacoma mitigates that flickering, so you don't get a premature burnout. So it's possible that you would have a vehicle, and it does vary between model years even, that would have a different setup. So sometimes it's just a matter of, well, why are you spending a little bit more money to get a harness when you don't really need it? Well, you do need it if you want it to last,
Right.
the whole time. On the Dodge and Jeep vehicles, we made a huge commitment to producing a circuit board that, we have on my Dodge truck, it's a 14, but it's got the feature where you're going to turn left or you're going to turn right and your headlight's on. The headlight gets turned off when you turn on the turn signal. So you're turning left into a dark alley or down a dirt road, and it's like, oh, hello, Mr. Ditch. So we use the what's called the optocoupler, which is the unit that controls a lot of these functions, and we just engineered that out so that the headlight stays on when you turn left or turn right, so it doesn't leave you in the dark. But there's things like that are. It's why you'll see on a Dodge or a Jeep vehicle, sometimes you'll see something that, you can buy it for $89 or $189 or whatever, and our vehicle specific kit's $388. Well, there's a reason for it.
Yeah,
and most people don't want to have to go through the act of taking out their grill, getting into behind the wheel well, pulling a little lever to release your headlight, taking the headlight out, putting the headlight back in, putting the grill back in, with all the things that are entailed in that. Not to mention if you pay for the labor for all that, because it's hours of work. You don't want to do that once. Yep. You don't want to do it once, and you want to say goodbye. It's just like work. You're supposed to work, so just work. So that's where we fall back to these vehicle-specific kits. Having said that, and I used an older vehicle as an example in my case with the Dodge, 2021, 20 to 23 vehicles with the Dodges now don't require that. They've redesigned the headlight system, and we can use a straight up bulb. So your older truck needs a $400 kit. Your 23 needs a $200 kit. And it's just
that I never understood that, turning off the headlights when you go around a corner, right? Like it just never made sense to me.
I think it was I think the intent was noble. It was meant to, most accidents and intersections take place because people didn't notice the turn signal. And so a headlight can sometimes overpower a turn signal. So instead of making the turn signals brighter, whatever.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, but
I'm not here to argue the point. But.
Exactly. So I would say, like, is your best bet? I mean, obviously people can go to the website, brightsource.ca, and there's a thing where you pick your vehicle, and then you pick your vehicle, and there's a variety of bulbs available for you there. And imagine most people are going to end up going with the LED instead of the HIDs, right? Is that
right?
These days seems to be the most popular way to go.
It is.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the one, say 2017 Tacoma, and I see the one there with the H9 and that willow wiring harness that you're talking about. So I'm going to quick look through here at the same time, and then the H11 is for the low beams, and what is with the H11? There's ones with the cooling fins on them.
Right. So that's an older
also that's the older version.
Yeah, that's the older series. So
okay,
light output on that one is just a little bit. It's a little bit less than and so that one was running, for example, at 32 watts. That was the 9 series that we ran with for a few years, and then the ML series runs at 55 watts.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a bigger output on that. I just want to also mention, just so like you and I aren't leading anybody down the path.
Yes.
If your vehicle was equipped originally from the factory with an OEM headlight bulb that was a halogen headlight bulb, you are free to upgrade your bulb to an LED or an HID option. But if you replace that bulb, it is no longer a street legal headlight.
Gotcha.
So you need to know that. Many people don't care because they want to see better, and they it's I'll see better or not. There's also, back when LEDs first came out, there were way more tickets given. I never hear about somebody getting a ticket, and I'm not trying to tempt the fates, but and more vehicles are coming with OEM LED headlights from the factory. So the technology has made the leap, but there's so many older vehicles out there that really would benefit for their drivers to use it. And so you just need to, that's we have a statement on our website that says, make sure you're checking local laws, but by and large, right across North America, there's no SAE approval on LED or HID headlights as replacement bulbs if your vehicle was originally equipped with a halogen.
Yeah. And I think that there used to be a lot more tickets, a lot longer, like a longer time ago, like you say, but I think that the technology has definitely come a long ways so that you're not blinding everybody if you step up one quality of your light, of your headlights. There's so many vehicles. I don't quite understand why so many vehicles have such poor lighting from the factory. It blows me away. Hop into a vehicle, it's like you can barely see, especially in like when you get rain or something like that. You can't see anything.
Yeah. There is an equation, and it's how bulbs are chosen for vehicles, and it's based on the weight of the vehicle, and the average reaction time that a person might have from driving along a highway, seeing a need to stop, being able to react and stop safely in a period of time. And that's the wattage lux lumen equation. What a lot of people don't realize is as soon as they change up their wheels and tires, they put in suspension, they do other things, the equation has changed. So your vehicle is now significantly heavier than it may have been direct from the factory, and you need a little bit more time. So if you're doing a major upgrade, you need to be considering all factors when you're just like, oh yeah, I'll throw in some new suspension and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then it's like, there's a 40, 60 pound winch on the front of the car or vehicle or whatever. And it's just, all of these things contribute to the equation of how to get home safely.
Exactly. Definitely. And headlight alignment is another thing too. People will lift up their vehicles that go from, say, a 30-inch tire up to a 33 or a 35-inch tire or taller, and not realize that their headlights are going up at the same time and they're going straight into people's eyes. So that's definitely one thing, if you guys run the lift kits, do that, pull up to a white or a building and have a look and see where headlights are actually pointing, because I can guarantee that most of the listed vehicles out there have not adjusted their headlights.
Yeah.
So that is definitely key. One of the neat things you guys do have at brightsource.ca is a Raptor grill marker kit.
Yeah.
And definitely that's something that you definitely see on some of the Tacomas and that, but it's a universal kit, so you can put it on anything.
Right.
And it does a couple different colors, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's unique in the sense. So again, there's a lot of aftermarket pieces out there that are, range in quality and price. What we wanted to do with this was to come out with the option of having in that single application. So there we sell either the lights as singles or as 3-packs, but you get an SAE DOT approved marker light. So it's bright enough to satisfy SAE DOT. With that comes like an IP rating that means it's waterproof and it doesn't fill up with water. A lot of the cheaper stuff isn't well sealed. And so you're buying something that now fills up with water after a week. And that 2-color combination, again, gives you, so when my parking lights are on and I'm just cruising, I just want to have an amber look, or, I want this to hook up to my DRL and look like, my front end is aligned with the world. And this customization thing, you do notice vehicles differently when you see more lights, and it's not necessarily just super bright because that marker is bright enough, but it's just a cool look. And we pull a lot of those. And that's a good item to consider because it's smallish. It could be a stocking stuffer.
Exactly. Christmas is coming up, right? So,
Yeah.
Speaking of other Christmas ideas, we got a couple other ones. Your 4x6 and 5x7 work lights, your portable lights.
Yeah.
Those, I think, would be another thing that should be on people's Christmas gift because they're small enough that you can carry them on your vehicle. Can you maybe give our listeners a bit of a rundown on those?
Sure. So there's one model. It's part number 7979050, and it's a zero glare reverse work light. One of the things about hauling trailers and or even putting this on the back of your toy hauler so you can see where you're backing is that this has a really sharp cutoff pattern. So the pattern is like 100 degrees wide, but it's got a very shallow sphere of output. So it's like 40 degrees. So it actually cascades downwards. So if you're behind the vehicle and you're trying to direct the driver where to back, you're not being blinded by the light. It's really a big deal. And you can get that light has the option of being mounted either horizontally or vertically. So you just pull out the 4 screws and you just can adjust the angle of the bracket. The tri-light is the 790602, and that's a really broad pattern. So 120 degree vertical, but a 120 degree horizontal and a 35 degree fall. So you'll see that on a lot of work trucks, and they're designed to really light up a work area. And so that's got an 88 meter range, which is 250 feet. So it's
that's a lot. Yeah,
quite good. So those are really excellent work lights. We sell a bunch of those into even the OEM world. So
I can definitely see those on work trucks for sure. That's they're perfect for that. Another one that caught my eye was your triangular safety light.
Yeah. That's a cool light. I love that light. It's and you'll see triangular reflective products that are used to to denote a breakdown ahead. This has a couple of great functions light wise. So it's either got a solid red in the form of the triangular light output, or that can be set to a flashing red, which catches people's attention better.
Yep.
There is a full-on work light function too. So it's got 3 large white LEDs that can light up your work area. So a couple of those, you could have one further down the road, and you could have another one that would help to light up your work area if you're changing a tire or something. And there's that white light output has 100% or a 50% light output, so you can make it a little dimmer. Often after a little bit of time, I always go to the 50% because it'll last longer and it's also not as glaring. But the other thing that's really cool with that is that it can act as a power bank. So if your phone's dying and you're out in the middle of nowhere, then you can use the USB port on the back of this triangular light to charge your phone. And so there's nothing worse than being nervous about your battery power, when you're lost or when now you have a breakdown. And so that is really key. So speaking of battery power, I'm about to lose mine. So plug into the side here. I don't have a cord. I'm gonna have to pour yours. Sorry, but that's good. We have other rechargeable lights too that are super handy, and
that's what I kind of thought was interesting. Is it's not just light bars and cubes, right? You guys have, for lack of better terms, industrial lighting as well. So you got beacons and different things, right? But on the industrial side, but also you've got these, like say the triangular safety light for in case of breakdowns, whatever. But the one other one that really caught my eye was the rechargeable headlamp. And while it caught my eye because one of my headlamps batteries died when I was out camping last weekend. And I'm like, I need to get a rechargeable one because then I could just plug it in when I'm traveling, right, to recharge it, and or at the campsite or whatever. And I'm like, instead, I was searching around when I didn't have any light, searching around on my console for one of my other headlights, right? So
like it's frustrating because you oh darn it, I meant to buy more batteries, and it is it's tremendous. I mean, we drop kick these around the shop here. They're super durable. The charging time is quick. There's several functions. I'm just going to run through them real quick, but it's got a hands-free option. So if your hands are all dirty and you don't want to furt around with trying to find the button, you just kind of wave your hand in front, and it'll turn it off or turn it on again.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there is a 50% function, so there's 100% or 50%. At the 50%, light output will last for 4 or 5 hours. So that's pretty darn handy. And then you can tilt it forward, of course, and you can actually take it off the headband, and then there's a magnet in the base, and so you can actually stick it to the side of anything metallic, and now you've got 360 degrees to rotate that and or aim it by tilting it forward. So super versatile, and it's like $74.
I was just looking at it. Yeah, $74, which for a good quality headlamp is a good price. I mean, you can buy a $20 one, but you'll be lucky to get much time out of them, right? So any of your good quality headlamps are going to cost you money, but they're going to last you several seasons. And $74, $74 is a great. I think it's a good price, and it'll fit into a stocking.
Yeah, it is a beautiful little. We sold thousands of those. They're very popular, and all of the Tech Series lights have their own space. Just the slim light fits into your pocket. There's a little twin beam that's more of like a fist grabber. You can see wherever you want to go with that. People have joked about leaving it in the vehicle and they send it out for the customer. They come back a couple weeks later. It's still there. It's still stuck. Not always. But, anyway.
Yeah. I know they definitely got some really neat under the rechargeable section on the website. Definitely got some neat lights in there for sure. So there's a couple that like say fold up nice and definitely worth looking at for sure. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything that we missed, Ian? I know we covered a lot today, but
we did cover a lot. I think we've done a reasonably good job of giving you an overview, and hopefully some of the technical aspects of lighting is a little bit more clear to people.
Yep.
And we are adding more content to our Brightsource website. Strands has a lot of videos, so you'll see lots of video links there. We're getting up to speed with that on our other products. So, it is such a got to see it kind of product, to really believe what it'll do. But it's we've been in business for 14 years now and going nowhere but ahead. So we're going to continue with our product development and still stick basically to those main values of providing a good product at a good price and then servicing the heck out of it when it needs it. And it's
definitely good. I mean, and you guys also do have, retailers, across Canada as well too, right? So if sometimes you want to actually see and touch a product before you make that purchase, and that's totally understandable, as well as, we were talking, earlier on air that you had people at Overland North events in Ontario and that, and sometimes it is just nice to physically touch that product. And
we do spend time at gatherings like Overland North. We've been to the Toronto Sportsman Show. We've been to regional shows in a lot of locales, and I love meeting people and the opportunity to chat with people when they're in their element and the guard's down a little bit and they're just enjoying life. It's nice to have an interaction with people beyond the business side of things. It's just like you have a passion.
Definitely. And I think, a lot of times some of the best ideas that I've seen come out of products have come from customers. So getting that face-to-face feedback from customers, and that's a perfect example of it as your multi-use lights, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. But definitely, once again, remember our 4x4 Canada family, that Brightsource, if you go to brightsource.ca and use the promo code of 4x4 Canada at the checkout for a 15% discount. So huge.
Yeah, plus
free freight. That's really good because you guys are based in Vancouver. So, shipping to Ontario or east or up north, definitely that helps out for sure. So, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much for helping our listeners out with that for sure. So,
my pleasure. Yeah.
Once again, we're talking to Ian from Brightsource Lights. You mentioned you can check it out, brightsource.ca, and Brightsource on Facebook, Instagram, and you got some good YouTube videos up. Like I say, I really like that video you got on the titanium T4 light. That really explains it. And it's going back to the whole thing you're talking about earlier, being visual, right? So it's hard to explain a light sometimes to somebody without them actually seeing a video or it in person. So definitely recommend checking out their YouTube channel. You guys got some good stuff on there that helps explain it better than I could ever explain it.
And if you do want to check it out in a retail store, like the better quality truck accessory stores, definitely either have access to it or be able to tell you some stories about it to your satisfied customers too.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with me today, Ian. And
thank you very much. Yeah,
I know I've learned a bit, and I'm sure our customers learned some too. So but it's definitely not just a regular light company. Check out their website because that's where you're going to find out most of your information. Everything from those little work lights that we're talking about, or the rechargeables, right into the light bars and the Siberia products, etc. So definitely check out the website. That's going to be your best bet. So awesome. I appreciate you coming on board, Ian.
Thanks very much, Wes. It was great. I enjoyed chatting with you. And I hope Trish is feeling better.
Hopefully. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.